All right, first grade, this is how we are going to make our mouse and his cookies. So we're gonna have clay. If you were at home, you could use Model Magic, air dry clay, Play-Doh, all of those things are wonderful to use. We're gonna take our ball of clay and we're gonna divide it in half. So I'm gonna take my ball and I'm just gonna twist and tear it in half like that. So I have two pieces. One of these is going to be for the mouse. The other is going to be for the ears, the nose, and then my cookies. So I have my ball of clay here. I'm going to kind of form it into a ball, and you can do that by gently patting it and rotating it around. As you do this, you can also do it by squeezing and rolling it into a ball. All right, we're gonna take this ball shape and we're gonna turn it into what's called a pinch pot. A pinch pot is like a little bowl or pot, and you make it with your pincher fingers. Okay, so I have my ball. Notice how it sits nicely in the palm of my hand. I'm gonna take my opposite thumb and I'm gonna poke this thumb into my clay up to the first knuckle of my thumb, like so. Okay, and notice how I know the whole thumb is not in there, but I poked up to the first knuckle of my thumb. So I have this kind of thumb indentation. This is where I'm gonna take my pinchers, not pinchers this way, pinchers, or I could call it like a duck mouth, quacker. Okay, I'm gonna take that and I'm going to pinch from the center and the edge, but I'm not going to pinch just here. I'm going to start down here at the bottom of my pinch pot, and I'm going to pinch a little, turn it, pinch, turn it, and I'm going to do this till I go all the way around. Now look at my opening here. It's starting to look a little bit more like a bowl. Now that my opening is bigger, I can end up using both hands if I'd like to. You don't have to. But what I want you to notice here is how thick this wall is compared to this one. This tells me that this side right here needs a little bit more pinching. I'm also gonna feel from the bottom of the pot to the outside here, I'm gonna feel that kind of still feels like there's a lot of clay there. So I need to make that a little thinner. So I'm gonna keep coming down here, and I've got my thumb inside, and I'm just gonna gently pinch and turn it, okay? And I'm gonna do that now with both hands. I've got both thumbs in. I'm gonna pinch and turn. Anytime I feel a ridge of my clay, I'm gonna gently kind of pinch that together. And when I do this, I'm feeling for any parts that feel thick, and I'm gonna gently pinch those. If they feel thin, I'm not going to pinch them because I don't want to make too many thin spots, but I'm trying to make it to where everything when I feel around feels about the same thickness. I don't have any parts that are too thick or too thin. And as I've done this, you can see now that I have like a little bowl here and it's got kind of a nice top shape to it. Notice the walls of my clay look to be about the same thickness. And as I feel with my fingers and my thumb, I don't feel any parts that feel too thick anymore. So that's good. Now, the bottom edge of my clay here is kind of cracking, and that's okay. You can gently squeeze them back together. You can kind of pinch them and kind of flatten them out, mold them. You have to think about clay as being very similar to Play-Doh. If you can make it in Play-Doh, you can make it in clay. If you want, you can get a little bowl of water and dip just the tip of your finger in, and you can rub that across your clay to help smooth it out. I'm okay with mine being a little bit cracked because this down here is gonna be at the bottom of my mouse. We're gonna end up turning him over here in just a minute. So I'm just kind of smoothing out with my finger a little bit, filling in any cracks, okay? Does not have to be perfect. And then I'm gonna take my bowl and I'm gonna turn it over. So this right here is the body of my mouse. And the reason why we turned it into a pinch pot instead of just getting a ball of clay and leaving it as my mouse's body is for a couple of reasons. One, a solid ball of clay like this one takes weeks to dry. Very, very long time to make sure all of the moisture is out of the center. Something like a pinch pot typically takes maybe 4 or 5 days, maybe a week, depending on how thick the walls of it is, but it takes a lot less time to dry. And the reason why we want our clay really nice and dry before I put it in my kiln is if there is moisture or wetness left inside the clay and I put it in my kiln, when water heats up, it expands. And if you have that moisture in the very, very center of your clay and that is going to expand, meaning it gets bigger, what's going to happen to this ball of clay if the very center of it is trying to go like this? It's going to end up cracking or exploding and just creating a giant catastrophe inside the kiln. Because if this explodes, the pieces come out and they damage other pieces of clay, and we don't want that. So I'm just smoothing the surface of my clay here. Got a nice smooth pinch pot, looking pretty good. I'm now ready to add on the ears and the nose. Okay, so I'm going to take my other ball of clay and I'm going to pinch off a small piece about the size of a small grape, maybe. And I'm going to pinch off a second one about the same size. Okay, these are going to be the ears for my mouse, excuse me. And I'm just going to kind of pinch those and turn them around and make them into a ball like this. Okay, I'm going to do that for both of them. If I end up doing this and one is smaller than the other, I need to decide which one I want to use. Mine look to be about the same size. This one looks a little bit smaller. Instead of taking away clay from there, I'm going to add some to that. So I'm just going to pinch off a little bit and I'm going to press it onto that ball of clay. I'm going to try and make another ball. Okay. I feel like we're about the same size now. So now I am ready to attach my clay together. Okay. I'm going to make my ears and then I'm going to attach them together. What I'm going to do with the ears though is I'm not going to pinch the whole thing and make it flat. I'm just going to pinch the very top. So it looks like this. Okay. So it's still thick at the bottom, thinner at the top. I'm going to do that with the other one. Okay, so I have two pieces like that. I'm going to take them and I'm going to kind of curve them. So I've got each side and I'm just trying to fold them in on themselves, kind of curving it. So I've got a little bit more of an ear shape. So I'm just trying to kind of pinch and move the clay. So I've got a little bit more. The other thing I'm going to do too is I'm going to try to flatten that thick part that I left thick. I'm going to flatten that. Okay. To attach these to my mouse, we're going to use a little bit of water to do that. Okay. I have here my cup with a little bit of water. When I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. You really don't need much. Okay. I'm going to take the tip of my finger and dip it in. It's wet. I'm going to take my ears and on that flat bottom I made, I'm just going to rub across. What I'm doing is I'm creating like a slime. That slime for clay is like the glue. If you tried to stick two pieces of paper together without glue, wouldn't work. Same with clay. If you try to stick two pieces of clay together that don't have some water to them, so they're wet, they're not going to stick. So I've got my ear nice and wet, and I'm going to stick one on top. And I like to do what's called a stick and wiggle. So I stick it on and I push gently as I wiggle it back and forth. You're going to find that eventually it stops wiggling. When it stops wiggling, it is stuck down. Okay? I can take my finger and smooth out some pieces, but I don't want to try to push it too hard or else I'm going to crush my mouse body. So I've got my other ear, little bit of water, make that slime on the bottom. Slime is called slip, S-L-I-P. That is what it's called. So we've got that. I'm going to stick it on here. I'm going to do my little stick and wiggle. When it stops really wiggling, I know it's stuck down. I'm going to kind of curve my ear back and smooth out any places that need smoothing. So there's my mouse ears. They're all stuck on. The next thing we're gonna add on is our nose. And our nose is just gonna be a tiny little ball of clay. So I pinched off just a little bit. And I'm gonna roll it into a ball like so. There's my mouse nose. Get a little bit of water. Tap the end of it. Make a little bit of slime. And I'm just going to stick on my nose like that. You get some extra water on there, you can just kind of wipe it off. Okay, and there is my cute little mouse. The last thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna poke a hole at the back of our mouse. So after it is fired and we've colored it, we can add a tail. So I have this tool here. It's not really a tool, it's an unfolded paper clip. We use these a lot in the art room. They're perfect. But I'm going to take my paper clip here, and at the back of my mouse, so I've got my nose. I'm gonna kind of come to the back about here. I don't wanna go all the way at the bottom, and I don't wanna be all the way up here. I wanna be kind of in the middle. I'm gonna poke that through so that it comes through all the way. Then, before I'm done, I'm gonna kind of twirl it around into a circle so that I end up with a hole in my clay, okay? Sometimes you kind of need to do on the inside too. If you make a hole and you wiggle it around and you can't really see inside your pinch pot, your hole is not big enough, okay? And I will be happy to help you with this. So maybe your clay is being stubborn and we need to find a bigger tool. We can easily come up with something better. This usually works though. Okay, so I have my hole. I can see all the way through to both sides. So my mouse is done. When your mouse is done, you're gonna put your initials on the inside. You can also raise your hand and I will come around and do it, but we gotta identify whose mouse is whose. So you're gonna put your initials in. For me, my first name begins with the letter K, so I'm going to gently pull my paper clip across the surface. I'm not poking it, I'm not cutting it, I'm just pulling it across to make that K. That's my first letter of my first name. Yours may not be K, maybe yours is an L or an A or an H or whatever it may be, okay? So there's the letter for my first name. Then I need to do the letter for my last name. My last name begins with the letter M. So I'm going to drag my tool across the surface and I'm going to make my M. You need help with this. I can help you or you can ask another adult. Okay, so there is my KM, so I know this is my mouse. Yours will not say KM unless you have the same letters as I do. Yours will say the first letter of your first name and the first letter of your last name. Okay, we still have this section of clay here. We're going to make some cookies because our mouse was given some cookies. So we're going to take our ball of clay here, and if you want, you can divide it in half and tear it in half like we did the first time. If you want a little bit of clay left over though, we're going to save one of those. So we're going to take our clay and we're going to tear it in half. I like to pull and then twist, and that tears them in half. I'm going to set this one over here. I can use this later on for extra. If I want to make something extra for my free clay, I can do that. This right here is what we're going to use for our cookies. And each kiddo is going to make 2 cookies. So I need to divide this one in half again. So I'm going to twist it and pull. Okay? So I have my 1 ball and 2 ball of clay. I'm going to form them into a ball again. Okay, there's one. Do the same thing with this one. And when you do these, they're okay if they're 2 different sizes. Cookies are always different sizes. Okay, so I have 1, 2. Now we're gonna make them into pancakes. We're gonna flatten them out. So I'm gonna take my hand and push, just like there. There's 1 cookie, 2 cookies, just like that, okay? Now, we can make these into chocolate chip cookies, and we can do that when we add color. If you want to make yours look like chocolate chip cookies with the clay, you can do that too. If you don't, you're gonna be done here, and on the back, we're gonna put our initials again. So for me, remember, it was a K and an M. Yours may not be. It's the first letter of your first name and the first letter of your last name. Okay? So if you want to add your chocolate chips on when we go to paint them, then you're done. That's all you need to do. If you want to, though, you could take some of your extra clay and pinch off just a few little pieces, decide how many chocolate chips or whatever it may be. Maybe yours are M&Ms or something you want for your cookies. Okay. And we can just add those on. Some of my chocolate chips here are really weird looking shapes. So I'm going to make them into balls and flatten them back out. Okay. I got chocolate chips going everywhere. Okay, there's my chocolate chips. So just like I did with the ears and the nose, I'm going to put a little bit of water on them and stick them down. Okay. If you choose to do this, you're going to do them to both of your cookies. And then we're going to put them on the clay cart, and I will put them in the kiln to be fired. And there is your mouse and your cookies. If you have extra clay that you want to make something with, you are welcome to. Anything extra that you make sure you put your first initial and your last initial on them as well, so I know they are yours. And they will go on the clay cart also. But there are our cookies and our mouse.